You're still watching Business Breakfast right here on iBrandTV. Now, the Lagos State government has announced the completion of the Lekki deep sea port, one of the largest in West Africa. According to experts, the port is premised on placing Nigeria on its continued path of economic prosperity. The government, the Lekki deep sea port, will create about 200,000 jobs, generate $361 billion in revenue, and formally address the congestion of trade. Now let's discuss the potential in this sector further with Dr. Fanrito Kayode Collins. He is the acting national president, Association of Nigeria Licensed Customs Agents. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Kayode. Can you hear me?
Thank you for having me.
Yes. All right,
I can hear you loud and clear.
Let's start by assessing the opportunities in this newly developed seaport after its completion.
Yes, first and foremost, let me say that having Lekki Deep Sea Port is one of the best things that will happen to our economy and Nigeria in particular. Do not forget that there is no port in Nigeria that has the kind of facilities and infrastructure that we have at Lekki Deep Sea Port. So I'm delighted that in the next 1 or 2 months now, Nigeria will be proud of having a deep sea port. Unlike before now, where most of our consignments and heavy vessels are diverted to Ivory Coast and the ports.
Oh, okay.
Now, heavy vessels can call on our waterway. So I'm highly delighted. It's a welcome thing.
Yeah, so let's talk about the opportunities this portend.
Yes, there are a lot of opportunities for us. The first thing I want to say is that Nigeria will not be witnessing heavy vessels calling on our waterways. Before now, we have most of our seaports is only 12-meter draft that the waterways are, and that is why heavy vessels cannot come to our waterways. Now, Lekki Deep Sea Port, because I visited the place, is going to be about 16 meters draft, so meaning that the most heaviest vessel can come to our waterways. So it's a welcome development. That's number one. If you look at the issue of creating employment for young youth, it's going to also create employment for youth, and I'm happy that our youth who do not have employment should catch on this opportunity and know that they have 1 or 2 things to do at the Lekki Deep Sea Port. That's secondly. The other issue is the issue of economy. You're going to, because I noticed that Lagos State has about 30% of the investment, so the internally generated revenue of Lagos State will increase from next year. So also, federal government will make a lot of money through this deep sea port. Other things that I want to say is that it's going to be a transit port where heavy vessels, when they call, they unstuff their cargoes, and these other cargoes will now be taken with small batches to other smaller ports, or will be taken from there to the consignee's warehouse, depending on the kind of arrangement that has been entered into by the consignee. So Lekki Deep Sea Port is the best thing that will happen to our economy. The only thing, my only fear, is the law of our Nigerian Customs Service. We need a customs administration that will be in line with international best practice. The one we have for now is not too good. Vis-a-vis the fact that federal government is giving them targets. So if we bring this attitude to Lekki Deep Sea Port, it's going to kill the intention of those that actually made the port as a model port. So we need attitudinal changes, part of the customs administration, and every other security agencies that are going to work on this, work in this port.
Apart from the challenge you just talked about, what are the other challenges to look out for, especially when you look at the fact that the Apapa seaport is also facing some major challenges that have not been tackled till date? Dr. Kayode.
Yeah, are you hearing me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, I mentioned a few years ago that Nigerian government does not have a consistent policy. That's number one. And the fact that we do not have what is called interport modal system. As beautiful as Lekki Deep Sea Port is, we don't have rail connecting the place. If you want to go to Lekki Deep Sea Port now with your vehicle, it could take another 7-8 hours, except you are going flying on a helicopter. So government need to look at this, whether we have a designated lane for any trucks. I noticed that there's a designated lane immediately before you get to Lekki Deep Sea Port. But from Lagos to that place, there should be a designated lane for trucks that will carry consignment. And the other factor is that the federal government, we were told that it's going to cost $1.2 billion to have a rail connected to that deep sea port. It is mandatory we do that if we want to enjoy the impact of the Lekki deep sea port. If this is not done, I'm afraid there will still be congestion in that place, and the intention of this deep sea port will be frustrated. So we need a rail connectivity to that place, and there must be a lot of things that must be put in place in terms of infrastructures and facilities for government to be able to actually generate that money that we think they want to generate or they will generate.
When you talk about the attitudinal change that you mentioned earlier for the customs service, who is responsible for creating that sensitization or reorientation for that body? Dr. Kayode?
Well, the Minister of Transportation has a role to play in this sense, but I keep advising the federal government for us to. There are a lot of potentials that has not been tapped in the industry. There's need for incoming government to start looking at balkanizing Ministry of Transportation, maybe unbundling it. We can have a Ministry of Maritime Affairs that will now have concentration on the issue of looking at making Lekki Deep Sea Port a success. Because if this is not looked into, the various challenges that I just enumerated will kill the good intention, and before you know it, time is money in maritime industry. If a consignee or an importer brings in his consignment and he notices that there are various human factors or elements that will impede free flow of cargo and traffic through that port or in and out of that. And these are the things government should seriously look into. We need to create a Ministry of Maritime Affairs that will unbundle the Transportation Ministry, looking at Lekki Deep Sea Port and the investment of the Lagos State and the federal government and the various partners. How do we unbundle it? How do we make it a success? The first thing that must matter to us, because the World Customs Organization recently, about 1 year ago, talked about a time release study. Time release study has to do with when a vessel bats on a waterway, how long does it take for that vessel to unstop the cargo? How long does it take for that cargo to reach the consignee's warehouse? If we must achieve this, we must put all this into consideration for Lekki Deep Sea Port to be a success.
Well, let's look at how this will further open up the access economically, especially for investors. What are the potentialities here?
The potentialities are very many. Do not forget that I think private investors are also involved, who are also making sure that they will importers or investors to come to Nigeria. But there must be incentives for foreign investors. Don't forget we have FDI at that time. The foreign investors must be encouraged to make sure that their money will not be invested or tied down anyhow. If an investor sees that his money is not tied down anyhow, he brings in the business, and before you know it, there are too many things that can be done, like Deep Sea Port, where government. But we must unbundle a lot of things for us to achieve that. We must make sure we have accessibility to that port, because it's not accessible for now. When I talk about accessibility, there should be free flow of traffic to any modern port or any deep sea port.
We'll have to leave it there.
A construction of a road that will lead to that port, where once you enter that express road, you are only terminating at Lekki Deep Sea Port. This must be put into consideration.
All right, well noted. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Kayode Farintor. Thank you for your time on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great day. All right, we'll take a break, and after the break, we will be going into other conversations. Please stay with us.